Think back to the last time you walked through a dense, overgrown forest. You probably saw all kinds of plant life: vines, bushes, moss, trees, and a healthy number of fallen logs. When things die in nature, they begin to break down and decompose, which is where fungi comes into play. Fungi belong to a kingdom all their own, just like animals, plants, bacteria, and protista. They are eukaryotic organisms that absorb nutrients from other organic matter. When a tree falls or an animal dies, fungi are typically the first on the scene to begin the natural process of decomposition. Upon seeing a mushroom, most people would immediately view it as a vegetative organism, one that is closely related to plants. However, as recent research has shown, mushrooms are, in fact, more closely related to humans than they are to plants. Thousands of years ago, we classified life on Earth into just two categories: plants and animals. Aristotle then further divided animals into those with and without blood, and those in the land, sea, and air. That rudimentary system remained in place until the 1600s. In the 18th century, Carol Linnaeus divided life into the kingdoms of animals and plants, and then divided them further into different genera and species. It wasn't until the middle of the 19th century that single-celled organisms were finally recognized as a separate kingdom of life, Protista. 70 years later, single-celled organisms were divided into eukaryotes and prokaryotes, making bacteria the fourth kingdom of life. Although fungi were seen as a unique part of the plant system, it wasn't until 1969 that it was categorized into a separate kingdom. This five-kingdom system remains the most widely accepted format for classifying life on Earth. Until recently, all classifications of life were based on physical observations of how things looked, even under a microscope. This is how the closeness and relationships between species, genera, classes, orders, and kingdoms were decided. Thus, it comes as no surprise that most people classified fungi as plants for generations. Their physical similarities can be striking. However, thanks to modern technology, we are able to look at relationships between forms of life differently. By examining the genes of different species, both animal and fungi, mutational changes can be observed, and genealogical relationships can be determined that stretch back millions of years. As it turns out, animals and fungi share a common ancestor and branched away from plants sometime around 1.1 billion years ago. Only later did animals and fungi separate on the genealogical tree of life, making fungi more closely related to humans than they are to plants. Now, while many people think of mushrooms as vegetables, they're not. Mushrooms are the fruiting bodies of macroscopic, filamentous fungi. When mycology, the study of fungi, first arose, it was a part of botany because fungi were regarded as primitive plants. The main difference between a plant and a mushroom is how they acquire their food. Plants possess chlorophyll and produce their food through photosynthesis. Fungi exist on decaying material in nature. In addition, there are obvious structural differences, such as the lack of leaves, roots, and seeds. Thus, fungi now have their own kingdom based on their unique cellular organization. So, while mushrooms may get lumped in with your produce, just remember that they're notably closer to an animal than they are to a plant.